He looked me straight in the eye with a smirk on his face and said, "People like you are only good for making coffee, not for making decisions." That sentence, those exact words, burned into my mind like fire. I stood there holding a tray of cappuccinos at my own cafe, trying not to let his voice break me. That man wasn't a stranger. He was my father-in-law. And that moment, it changed something deep inside me forever. I had never felt so small. Like I didn't matter. Like everything I was working for was nothing more than a joke to him. And the worst part? He said it in front of others. His friends, my husband, even a few of my customers. No one stopped him. No one defended me. They all just looked away like it was normal to talk down to someone who works hard for a living. Have you ever been looked down on for doing an honest job? Have you ever been treated like you're less, just because you weren't born into money? If you have, then maybe you'll understand why I did what I did. Why I stayed quiet that day, but only for a little while. Before all this drama, before marriage and insults and power games, my life was simple, but it was mine. I didn't have fancy clothes or a big house, but I had something I truly loved. Coffee. The smell of freshly ground beans, the gentle hum of a busy cafe, the warmth of a morning cup. I lived for it. People would laugh when I said coffee was my passion, but it wasn't just a drink to me. It was comfort. It was peace. It was the first thing I ever felt truly good at. I grew up in a small apartment with my mom. We didn't have much, but she taught me how to live with dignity and how to work for what I want. She worked 2 jobs to support us, and when I turned 18 I knew I had to contribute. I got a part-time job at a local cafe, and honestly I fell in love on the first day. There was something magical about turning a few ingredients into something that could make someone's day better. A smile from a tired customer, a quiet thank you from someone who needed that warm cup. It gave me purpose. I didn't dream of becoming a millionaire or owning a chain of stores. All I wanted was to open a small cafe where people felt seen and heard. Somewhere clean, cozy, with soft music and honest service. So I started saving. Every tip I got went into a little jar I kept hidden under my bed. Some nights I'd count the money and imagine what my cafe would look like. Wooden chairs, indoor plants, and a big chalkboard menu. People around me used to say I should aim higher. That working at a cafe wasn't a real job. But I ignored them. I believed there's honor in honest work. I didn't want to depend on anyone. I just wanted to build something from my own hands. I woke up early every morning, tied my apron, and worked double shifts when I could. I learned to brew the perfect espresso, memorize customer preferences, and even fix the coffee machine when it broke. I wasn't just working a job, I was preparing for something bigger. I didn't know back then that life was going to test me in ways I never imagined. It was during one of my early morning shifts that I first met him. He walked into the cafe dressed in a crisp shirt, looking slightly out of place among the sleepy regulars and the smell of roasted beans. He ordered a black coffee, no sugar, no cream. Just like that, we started talking. At first, it was just small conversations over the counter. Then he started coming in more often, always asking how my day was going, always staying a little longer than necessary. His name was Daniel. He was charming, polite, and surprisingly down-to-earth, for someone who, I later found out, came from a wealthy background. At first, I didn't think much of it. I was just a cafe girl, he was someone from another world. But he made me feel seen. He asked about my dreams, my plans for my own cafe, and even offered business advice. He seemed impressed with my passion and how hard I worked. That attention, that kindness, it felt special. We started dating and things moved fast. Within a few months he was introducing me to his friends, taking me out to places I'd never been, treating me like I mattered. When he proposed, I didn't even think twice. I said yes with tears in my eyes, believing I had found someone who accepted me completely. Someone who didn't care that I wore second-hand shoes or spent my days wiping counters. The wedding wasn't huge, but it was beautiful. My mom cried the entire time. She was so proud that her daughter had found someone who seemed to value her worth. But everything changed when I was introduced to Daniel's family after the marriage. They were polite, of course, at first. But behind their smiles I felt something cold. Something judgmental. His mother asked, "So, do you plan on keeping that coffee job forever?" His father looked me up and down and said, "Interesting choice, Daniel." They didn't see me. Not really. They saw a girl who didn't belong in their world. I tried not to let it bother me. I told myself they just needed time. I thought love would fix it, that if I stayed kind and respectful, they'd learn to accept me. I was so wrong. It didn't take long for the subtle comments to turn into open insults. The first time it happened, we were at a family dinner. Everyone was gathered around the long polished table, wine glasses clinking, laughter echoing from every corner, until his mother leaned over and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Isn't it sweet how she still plays barista?" Then she laughed. A few others joined in. I tried to smile, pretending it didn't sting, but inside I felt my chest tighten. Every visit after that felt heavier than the last. It was like walking into a room where I wasn't welcome. They never said it outright, but their faces said enough. The way his sister would wrinkle her nose and whisper to her husband whenever I talked about work. The way his father once introduced me to his business partner, saying, "This is my son's wife. She runs a small coffee place or something." Or the time we were celebrating Daniel's birthday at their home, and I offered to help in the kitchen. His mother smiled and said, "Well, at least you're used to taking orders." I froze for a second, unsure if I heard her right, but when I looked around the room, no one looked surprised. Not even Daniel. They didn't see my job as something respectable. In their eyes, making coffee wasn't a skill, it was a joke. They talked about their expensive vacations, their investments, their luxury brands, while I sat there quietly, sipping water and counting the minutes until I could leave. I didn't care about wealth or showing off, but the way they looked at me, as if I had no value, was slowly chipping away at my confidence. Even during family gatherings, I was treated like the help. His mother would say, "Oh good, you know how to handle trays. Can you serve the drinks?" And I would. I'd walk around with a fake smile, serving people who never saw me as an equal. They wouldn't even thank me. They'd just continue talking as if I didn't exist. Daniel never defended me. He'd just give me that awkward smile like he didn't want to make a scene. I kept telling myself it wasn't worth starting a fight. That if I stayed patient, maybe they'd respect me one day. Maybe they'd see how much I cared for Daniel and how hard I worked. But with every comment, every laugh behind my back, it became clearer. They didn't want to understand me. They only wanted to remind me that I was beneath them. And so I stayed quiet, holding my pain like a secret, but deep down, something inside me was changing. I realized something important the day his father laughed and said, "She makes coffee, not money." It wasn't just an insult, it was a challenge. That night I went home, sat alone in the kitchen and stared at my hands. These were the same hands that had worked double shifts, that had burned themselves on coffee machines, that had served hundreds of strangers with a smile. And yet they saw me as nothing more than a girl with a hobby. So I decided to stop trying to prove myself to them, and quietly started working on proving something to myself. I began saving money in secret. Every little tip, every extra shift I picked up at the cafe, I tucked away like treasure. I stopped buying anything unnecessary. While others were posting pictures of their weekend brunches or luxury handbags, I was collecting knowledge. Every night after work, I watched online videos about small business management, marketing, and customer psychology. I took notes. I studied. I learned how successful cafes were run, not just the coffee making but the strategy behind it. And when I finally had enough saved, I took a risk. I found a tiny space in a quiet corner of town, nothing fancy but clean and cozy. I signed the lease without telling anyone, not even Daniel. I spent every evening fixing it up after my regular cafe shifts. I painted the walls myself. I picked the furniture, created the menu, even designed the logo. It wasn't big, but it was mine. My café. My dream finally coming to life. The first day I opened, I was terrified. But slowly people started coming in. At first it was just a few curious faces from the neighborhood. Then a lady who lived nearby told her sister. Then that sister brought a friend. Word of mouth became my best advertisement. I served every cup with care. I remembered names, favorite drinks, even birthdays. I wasn't just selling coffee, I was building relationships. The customers noticed. They returned. They brought others. Some started working from my cafe, saying it felt peaceful. Some left notes thanking me for the calm space. I even had regulars who came in daily just to talk. I reinvested every penny I made into the business. Better equipment, fresher ingredients, little details to make the space warmer. All the while I kept my success a secret. I still smiled politely at family dinners. Still brought food to the table. Still listened quietly as they spoke about stocks and business as if I wasn't even in the room. But inside I knew something they didn't. I was building something powerful. Something real. And one day they would find out. But not yet. Not until the time was right. It didn't happen overnight, but over time the cracks in Daniel's family business started to show. At first it was small things. A missed payment here, an order that was late, a client who started pulling out. But then it started to snowball. There were rumors, whispers in the business community. Their clients weren't as loyal as they used to be, and the debts began piling up. Daniel's father, always the confident businessman, started to look less sure of himself. The charming smiles disappeared, replaced by furrowed brows and quiet meetings behind closed doors. I had no idea how bad things were getting until one day Daniel came home, his face pale. "They're in trouble," he said quietly, sitting beside me on the couch. "Dad and the business, they're deep in debt. They've made some bad decisions. And they need a loan to stay afloat." I tried to stay calm. "Why are you telling me this?" His eyes met mine. "Because they want to come to you. They don't know who else to turn to. I know you've been saving money and..." I could feel my heart beating faster. This wasn't just a bad business deal. This was desperation. His family, the ones who had looked down on me for so long, were now in a position where they needed me. And they didn't even know what I had built. They didn't know that I had a growing business of my own now. Something they would never have expected from someone like me. A week later they showed up at our door. His father, trying to hide the tension in his voice, asked if I could help. They had no other options. The bank wouldn't give them a loan. Their investors were pulling out. The company, which had once seemed so strong, was crumbling, and now they were asking me for a lifeline. I had worked so hard to keep my cafe growing, to make sure it was strong and sustainable. And now here they were, acting like I was their last hope. His mother, with that sweet but fake smile, said, "We've always known you were good with business. You could help us, couldn't you?" I wanted to laugh. I wanted to remind them of every insult they'd thrown my way, of the countless times they'd made me feel small. But I didn't. I just nodded and said I'd think about it. They didn't realize it yet, but I was already in a position to control this situation. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same people who had ridiculed my job, my passion, were now begging me for help. But I wasn't going to give them what they wanted so easily. No, they needed to learn a lesson. One that would change everything for them. And I would make sure of that. I had to keep my composure as I opened the door to greet them. There they were, Daniel's parents, looking as desperate as I'd ever seen them. His father's suit was crisp, but his shoulders were slumped. His mother, with her usual forced smile, seemed to have lost the usual arrogance that accompanied her every word. It was almost a relief to see them vulnerable for once, knowing that they had nowhere else to turn. "Good evening," I said, keeping my voice calm and polite. "Please come in." They stepped inside, exchanging nervous glances as they sat down. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. They didn't know it yet, but the tables had turned in a way they could never have predicted. I wasn't just some girl from a small cafe anymore. I had worked tirelessly to build my business into something that could shake the foundations of theirs. "So, about the loan," Daniel's father began, his voice almost pleading. "We've been struggling and we don't know where else to turn. The bank has rejected us and the creditors are breathing down our necks. We thought maybe since you've built something up yourself you could..." I interrupted him with a soft smile, the kind I had learned to perfect when I needed to hide the emotions boiling inside me. "Oh, I know." I leaned back slightly, letting my words sink in. "I've been doing quite well, actually. My cafe, it's growing. Word of mouth, loyal customers, and steady growth. I never imagined it would become what it is today, but here we are." They looked at each other, confusion clouding their expressions. His mother shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her eyes darting between me and Daniel as if trying to process what I was saying. Daniel was silent, his face pale. I could tell that he hadn't told them a thing about how far I had come. He hadn't told them about the business I had quietly built from scratch. They were still seeing me as the girl who made coffee, not the woman who now had a growing empire. I continued, my voice steady and calm, enjoying the discomfort in their eyes. "So, I've thought about it. I'm willing to offer you the loan, but it's not going to be as simple as just writing you a check." His father blinked, surprised. "What do you mean?" "Of course I'll help," I said, leaning forward slightly, letting the words hang in the air. "But there are a few conditions. First, I'll need to secure a percentage of shares in your company. You'll need to sign them over to me under my name. It's only fair considering the risk I'm taking by lending you money." His face froze. His mother's smile faltered, and for the first time she didn't know how to respond. They hadn't expected this. They had come here expecting to take money from me, not realizing that I was in the position to dictate the terms. The silence stretched, and I could feel the weight of it settling around us. Finally, his father cleared his throat, trying to regain his composure. But he stopped, realizing there was no way out. This was no longer a simple request for help. This was a deal he had no choice but to accept. I could see the realization dawning on him. They were trapped. The power had shifted entirely. And it was at that moment that the full weight of what had happened hit them. Who I had become, what I had achieved, and how deeply they had underestimated me. They were no longer the ones in control. I was. And one more thing, I added casually, letting my voice drop to a near whisper. I'll also need you to acknowledge that I will have a say in all major decisions going forward. You'll need to answer to me just as you would any other investor. It was like a punch to the gut. I could see the color draining from Daniel's father's face. He looked at his wife, then at Daniel, and then back at me, realizing the truth. They had underestimated me at every turn. They had treated me like nothing, like I didn't matter. But now the tables had turned. Now I had them exactly where I wanted them. They didn't say much after that. His father muttered something about needing to discuss it, but the silence between us was thick. The reality had sunk in. They were on the brink of losing everything. And I was the one who held the keys to their future. For a moment I just sat there watching them squirm, feeling a rush of satisfaction that I had earned. They had humiliated me, belittled my work, made me feel like I didn't belong. But now I had all the power. And it felt damn good. As I sit here today, surrounded by my team and the hum of my thriving cafe, it's hard to believe how far I've come. I never imagined my life would look like this when I first started out. When I was just the girl with a simple job, pouring coffee and dreaming of something bigger. I never imagined that the people who once looked down on me, the ones who thought my work wasn't good enough, would one day have to come to me for help. But here I am, stronger than I ever imagined. Looking back, I realize one thing more than anything else. Never let anyone shame your work. It doesn't matter if you're starting from the bottom, doing something others don't understand, or if your job isn't as glamorous as others might think. What matters is your passion, your dedication, and your belief in yourself. People will try to belittle you, to make you feel small, to convince you that your hard work isn't worth anything. But don't listen to them. What they don't understand is that every small step, every setback, every hour you put into your dreams, is building something much bigger than anyone can see. When I first started, I was embarrassed by the way others saw me. I let their words get to me. But now, looking at my cafes, the loyal customers who trust me, the incredible team that believes in what we do, I can't help but feel proud. My business is thriving, my confidence is stronger than ever, and I'm finally in a place where I feel at peace with myself. And as for them, the people who thought they could walk all over me, they've learned the hard way. They came to me not knowing the person they were speaking to. They thought they could keep pushing me down, but I turned that pain into strength. I turned their mockery into my success. So to anyone out there who feels like they're being overlooked, underestimated, or humiliated for what they do, remember this. Your work has value no matter what anyone else thinks. It doesn't matter if you're a barista, a housekeeper, a teacher, or anything else. If you pour your heart into it and give it your all, your work is worth something. You are worth something. I'm not telling you to get revenge or to seek out validation from others. What I am saying is this. Don't ever let anyone make you feel like you're less than what you are. Keep working, keep growing, and trust that in time your efforts will speak for themselves. The world doesn't always recognize your worth at first, but one day it will. And for me, that day came when I stood in front of those who once looked down on me and realized they were the ones who needed me now. It was a powerful moment. But even more powerful was knowing that I had earned every inch of that success on my own. I had worked for it, built it, and made it mine. So, wherever you are in your journey, keep pushing forward. Keep believing in yourself. Don't let the opinions of others define your worth. Because in the end, it's not about what they think. It's about what you know to be true. You are more than capable, and your work, no matter how small it seems, is the foundation of something great. Keep going, and one day you'll look back and realize just how far you've come.